You think you're solving problems. But what if every thought circling your mind right now is just fear, wearing the mask of preparation? There's a particular kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from thinking too much. You know this tiredness, the weight behind your eyes at 2 a.m. when sleep won't come, because your mind insists on replaying conversations that already ended, or rehearsing ones that may never happen. We call it overthinking. We treat it like a personality trait, a quirk, something we joke about over coffee. I'm such an overthinker. We say, almost proudly, as if our mental gymnastics prove we're thorough, careful, intelligent. But underneath that spinning wheel of thoughts, there's something else moving, something we don't want to name. Fear. Not the fear of tigers or falling, the fear of being seen as inadequate, the fear of making the wrong choice, the fear of losing control, the fear of being unloved, unworthy, unprepared, the fear that if we stop thinking, something terrible will slip through our fingers. So we think harder. We replay the past, searching for what we should have said, what we should have done differently, as if understanding yesterday will protect us from tomorrow. We rehearse the future, building elaborate scenarios in our minds, conversations that haven't happened, disasters that probably won't, outcomes we can't predict no matter how many times we run the simulation. And in all this mental motion, we convince ourselves we're being productive, strategic, wise. But here's what we don't see: overthinking is not thinking deeply. It's thinking in circles. It's the mind running on a treadmill, burning energy, but going nowhere. And the fuel that keeps that treadmill moving, it's not curiosity, it's not wisdom, it's fear. The Sufis have a teaching about the nafs, the ego, self, the part of us that lives in constant anxiety about survival, reputation, control. The nafs doesn't want truth, it wants safety. And when it can't control the external world, it does the next best thing. It creates an internal world where it can endlessly prepare, analyze, defend. This is the illusion of overthinking. It feels like we're taking action, but we're not. We're just thinking about action while standing perfectly still. Imagine a man standing at the edge of a river, trying to cross. But instead of stepping in, he stands there calculating the depth of the water, the strength of the current, the temperature, the risk of slipping, the possibility of rain upstream. He thinks and thinks and thinks. And while he's thinking, the day passes, the sun sets, and he's still standing on the same side of the river, convinced that one more hour of thinking will finally give him certainty. But the river doesn't offer certainty. Life doesn't offer certainty, and no amount of thinking will change that. Alan Watts once said, "We are living in a culture entirely hypnotized by the illusion of time, in which the so-called present moment is felt as nothing but an infinitesimal hairline between an all-powerfully causative past and an absorbingly important future. When we overthink, we abandon the present moment, the only place where we actually have power, and we scatter ourselves across timelines that don't exist. We live in ghost worlds, phantom conversations, hypothetical disasters. And why? Because the present moment asks something of us that overthinking helps us avoid. It asks us to be vulnerable. It asks us to act without knowing the outcome. It asks us to trust that we can handle whatever comes, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's not what we planned. Fear hates that. Fear wants guarantees, so it keeps us trapped in the loop, analyzing and re-analyzing, as if the 47th time thinking about something will finally reveal the certainty we're seeking. But here's the truth that overthinking conceals. You already know what to do. Beneath the noise, beneath the mental spiral, there's a quiet knowing. A wisdom that doesn't need to think in circles, because it understands that life unfolds not through perfect planning, but through presence, through response, through trust. The overthinker doesn't trust that knowing. The overthinker believes the mind can outsmart uncertainty. But you cannot think your way out of fear. You can only feel your way through it. So what do? How do we step out of this mental prison we've built brick by brick, thought by thought? We start by recognizing the pattern, not judging it, not fighting it, just seeing it clearly. When you catch yourself spinning in thought, pause. Don't ask, what should I think about this? Ask instead, what am I afraid of right now? Is it failure, rejection, looking foolish, being misunderstood, losing something you love? Name the fear. Not to shame yourself, but to bring it into the light. Because fear loses its power when we stop pretending it's something else. When we stop dressing it up as preparation or wisdom or thoroughness. Once you see the fear, you can choose differently. Not by thinking harder, but by breathing, by returning to your body, by asking, what is true right now, in this moment? Not what might be true tomorrow. Not what was true yesterday. What is true now? And from that place, not from the spinning mind, but from the still center, you can act. Not perfectly, not with certainty, but with presence, with courage. That's where real thinking begins. Not in the prison of overthinking, but in the freedom of awareness. Let's go deeper into the mechanism, because understanding how overthinking works is the first step toward freedom from it. Overthinking doesn't start randomly. It always has a trigger, something small usually. A text message that hasn't been answered, a comment someone made, a decision you need to make, a situation where the outcome matters to you. And in that moment, instead of simply being with the uncertainty, the mind jumps in with a promise, let me help, let me figure this out, let me protect you. It sounds helpful. It sounds like the mind is your ally. But watch what happens next. The mind starts generating scenarios. It pulls from the past every similar situation, every time things went wrong, every mistake you've made. It projects into the future every possible way this could unfold, every potential disaster, every version of failure or embarrassment or pain. And here's the trick. Each thought feels important. Each scenario feels like something you need to consider, something you need to prepare for. So you give it attention, you engage with it, and the moment you do, the mind generates 3 more thoughts. Before you know it, you're not thinking about the situation anymore. You're thinking about your thoughts about the situation. You're thinking about what it means that you're thinking about it. You're thinking about whether you're overthinking. You're trapped in what Buddhists call monkey mind. The restless, chattering consciousness that swings from branch to branch, never settling, never still. And underneath it all, the same fear keeps feeding the cycle. If I stop thinking about this, something bad will happen. If I don't figure this out completely, I'll make a mistake. If I don't mentally prepare for every possibility, I'll be caught off guard. But here's what the fear doesn't tell you. Overthinking doesn't prevent bad things from happening. It just makes you suffer in advance. It makes you live through painful scenarios that may never occur. It exhausts you before you ever face the actual challenge. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The overthinker lives in a world where every fear is amplified, where every uncertainty becomes a crisis, where the mind creates more pain than life ever could. Think of the mind like water. When water is still, it reflects reality clearly. You can see the sky, the trees, the stars, everything appears as it truly is. But when water is disturbed, when it's agitated and churning, the reflection becomes distorted. You can't see clearly anymore. Everything is fragmented, chaotic, unclear. Overthinking is the disturbance. It's the constant agitation that prevents clarity. And here's the paradox: we overthink because we want clarity. We want to see the situation clearly, make the right choice, understand what's happening. But the very act of overthinking destroys the clarity we're seeking. Real clarity doesn't come from more thinking. It comes from stillness, from allowing the water to settle, from giving the mind space to be quiet so that wisdom, which is always there, underneath the noise, can surface. This is why meditation traditions across cultures emphasize the same practice. Learning to observe thoughts without getting caught in them, not suppressing them, not fighting them, just watching them arise and pass like clouds moving across the sky. When you can do this, something remarkable happens. You start to see that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that witnesses thoughts. And from that place of awareness, you have choice. You can choose which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones are just fear talking. You can choose to engage with useful thinking, the kind that solves actual problems, and let go of repetitive, circular thinking that only creates suffering. Modern psychology calls this rumination the tendency to repetitively focus on negative thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Research shows that chronic rumination is strongly linked to anxiety and depression. It's not thinking that harms us. It's the specific type of thinking that loops endlessly without resolution. And what drives rumination? Almost always, it's an attempt to avoid emotional discomfort. We don't want to feel uncertain, so we think instead of feeling. We don't want to feel vulnerable, so we mentally rehearse conversations until we've scripted every possible response. We don't want to feel the grief of something that's already happened, so we replay it endlessly, trying to change the past through analysis. But emotions aren't problems to be solved. They're experiences to be felt, processed, and released. When we use thinking to avoid feeling, we trap ourselves. The emotions don't go away. They just get buried under layers of mental activity, creating more anxiety, more restlessness, more disconnection from ourselves. The way out is counterintuitive. It's not more thinking. It's less thinking and more feeling. It's asking, what emotion am I trying to avoid right now? And then having the courage to feel it. Not analyze it, not explain it. Just feel it fully in the body. When you do this, something shifts. The urgency fades. The need to figure everything out right this second relaxes. Because you're no longer running from yourself. You're present with what is. So many of us have been taught that thinking is the highest human capacity, that the mind is our greatest tool. and it is when used wisely. But we've forgotten that the mind is a servant, not a master. When it takes over, when it runs unchecked, it becomes a prison. The prison has no bars, just thoughts, endless, repetitive, exhausting thoughts. But you can walk out any time you choose. Not by thinking your way out, but by recognizing the fear that keeps you inside, by feeling what you've been avoiding, by returning, again and again, to the simple truth of this moment. Right here, right now. Where nothing needs to be figured out completely. Where you are enough, exactly as you are, even in your uncertainty. Now let's talk about what this looks like in practice. Because understanding is beautiful, but transformation requires application. When you notice yourself caught in the spiral of overthinking, here's what you can do. First, pause. Literally stop what you're doing. Stop pacing. Stop scrolling. Stop mentally rehearsing. Just pause. Place one hand on your chest, one on your belly, and breathe. 3 slow breaths. Nothing more. Just breathe and feel your body. This simple act interrupts the pattern. It brings you out of your head and into your body. And the body only exists in the present moment. The body doesn't overthink, it simply is. Second, name what's happening. Say it out loud if you're alone, or silently to yourself if you're not. I'm overthinking right now. Not as a judgment, not as a failure, just as an observation. The act of naming creates distance. It reminds you that you are not the overthinking. You are the one noticing it. Third, ask the deeper question. What am I really afraid of? Not the surface worry, not, what if they don't text back? Or, what if I make the wrong decision? Go underneath that. What's the core fear? Usually it's one of a few universal fears. I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of being inadequate. I'm afraid of losing control. I'm afraid of being seen for who I really am. I'm afraid I'm not enough. When you name the fear, something loosens. The fear doesn't disappear, but it becomes workable. It becomes something you can sit with, rather than something you need to think your way out of. Fourth, return to what's true right now. Not what might happen, not what happened before. Right now. Are you safe? Are you breathing? Are you alive? Most of the time, in this exact moment, things are actually okay. Not perfect, not certain, but okay. The Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a simple practice. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. Wonderful doesn't mean problem, free. It means full of wonder. It means alive with possibility. It means you're here, and that's enough. One of the deepest shifts you can make is changing your relationship with uncertainty itself. Overthinking is rooted in the belief that uncertainty is dangerous, that not knowing is a problem, that we should be able to predict, control, and understand everything before we act. But life is uncertain by nature. Every breath you take is uncertain. You don't know if the sun will rise tomorrow. You trust that it will based on past experience, but you don't know. You don't know what the next year will bring. You don't know how people will respond to you. You don't know if your plans will work out. And yet, you're still here. You're still breathing. You're still living. What if uncertainty isn't the enemy? What if it's the very thing that makes life possible? Think about it. If everything were certain, there would be no growth, no surprise, no discovery, no change. Life would be a predetermined script, and you'd just be an actor reading lines. Uncertainty is the space where possibility lies. It's the opening through which something new can emerge. It's the river that allows you to cross to the other side. When you can embrace uncertainty, not as a threat, but as the natural condition of existence, overthinking loses its grip. Because you're no longer trying to eliminate uncertainty through mental gymnastics. You're learning to dance with it, to trust yourself within it. This doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean not planning or thinking things through. It means recognizing the difference between useful thinking and fearful thinking. Useful thinking solves problems. I need to prepare for this meeting, so I'll review the key points and gather the information I need. Don't. The thinking has a purpose and an endpoint. Fearful thinking spins. What if they ask a question I can't answer? What if I look stupid? What if I stumble over my words? What if they don't like my ideas? What if this ruins my reputation? There's no endpoint. There's no solution. There's just more fear generating more thoughts. The spiritual path, whether Sufi, Buddhist, Christian mystic, or any other contemplative tradition, always arrives at the same insight. Let go. Let go of the need to control outcomes. Let go of the belief that you can think your way to safety. Let go of the exhausting effort to know everything before you act. This doesn't mean giving up or becoming passive. Letting go is not resignation. It's trust. It's the recognition that you are part of something larger than your individual mind. That life has an intelligence, a flow, a rhythm that you can align with, but only when you stop trying to force everything into your mental framework. The Tao Te Ching says, "Do you have the patience to wait until your mud settles and the water is clear?" That's what letting go looks like. It's patience. It's allowing. It's trusting that clarity will come when you stop churning the water. And here's what you discover when you let go. You are more capable than you thought. Not because you figured everything out, but because you learned to trust your ability to respond to life as it unfolds. You learned that you don't need to know everything in advance. You just need to be present, awake, and willing to act from that presence. The practice isn't about never thinking again. It's about thinking consciously, intentionally, in service of life, not in service of fear. It's about recognizing when the mind is being helpful and when it's just spinning. It's about learning to feel your emotions instead of thinking them away. It's about trusting that uncertainty is not your enemy, it's your invitation to be fully alive. You don't need to figure out your entire life tonight. You just need to be here, now, in this breath, and then the next one, and the next. That's enough. That's always been enough. So where does this leave you? Right here, with a choice. You can continue the old pattern, letting fear disguise itself as thinking, spending your precious life energy replaying the past and rehearsing the future, exhausting yourself in the endless loop of what, ifs and should haves. Or you can choose something different. Not because you've mastered your mind, not because you've eliminated fear, but because you've learned to see through the disguise. Every spiritual tradition speaks of awakening. But awakening doesn't mean reaching some elevated state where you never struggle again. It means waking up to what's actually happening, seeing clearly, recognizing the patterns that keep you trapped and choosing, again and again, to step into freedom. And the freedom I'm talking about isn't the freedom from fear. It's the freedom to act despite fear, to live fully, even when you don't have all the answers, to trust yourself, even when the path ahead is unclear. This is the secret that overthinking hides from you. You are already equipped for whatever comes. Not because you've thought through every scenario, but because you have the capacity to be present, to respond, to adapt, to learn. Life doesn't require you to be perfect. It requires you to be present. Life doesn't require you to know everything. It requires you to be willing to take the next step. Life doesn't require you to eliminate fear. It requires you to recognize fear and choose love anyway, love for yourself, love for the journey, love for the mystery of it all. The Sufis tell a story about a seeker who came to a master and said, "I'm trapped in my own mind. Everywhere I go, I take my worries with me." The master smiled and said, "You don't escape. You wake up. What's the difference?" The seeker asked. "Escape means you're still running. Waking up means you stop and see that the prison was always in your mind. The door was never locked. You were always free. You just didn't know it." This is the invitation. Not to run from your thoughts, not to fight your mind, but to wake up to the reality that you are not your thoughts. You are not your fears. You are the vast, aware space in which all of that appears and disappears. When you know this, not intellectually, but experientially, everything changes. Thoughts still come, fears still arise, but they no longer define you. They no longer trap you. You can watch a thought of worry pass through without becoming worried. You can notice fear without becoming fearful. You can observe the mind spinning without getting caught in the spin. And from that place of awareness, you can live. Really live. Not in the shadow world of mental projections, but in the vivid, immediate, ever-changing reality of now. I want you to feel something for a moment, not think about it. Feel it. Imagine what it would be like to go through an entire day without overthinking. To wake up and simply be with the morning. To have a conversation without replaying it afterward. To make a decision and then let it go, trusting that you did your best with what you knew. Imagine the lightness, the space, the energy you'd have not for more thinking, but for creating, connecting, loving, living. That's not a fantasy. That's available to you. Not someday when you've fixed yourself. Not after you've read enough books or done enough meditation. Right now, in this breath. The overthinking wants you to believe you need more preparation before you can be free. But that's just another disguise. That's fear saying, just a little more analysis, just a few more scenarios, and then you'll be ready. But ready for what? For life? You're already in it. For uncertainty, it's already here. For the possibility of pain, it comes whether you overthink or not. The only question is, will you be present for your life? Or will you spend it in your head, thinking about living instead of actually living? Here's what I want you to know as we close. You're not broken. You're not doing it wrong. The fact that you overthink doesn't make you weak or damaged. It makes you human. It means you care. It means you're trying to protect yourself in the only way you knew how. But now you know something more. You know that beneath the overthinking, there's fear. And beneath the fear, there's you whole, aware, capable, alive. You don't need to think your way into freedom. You need to feel your way, breathe your way, Trust your way into it. One moment at a time. One breath at a time. One choice at a time. The next time your mind starts spinning, remember, overthinking is fear in disguise. And fear loses its power the moment you name it, feel it, and choose to act anyway. Not because you're certain, but because you're here, because you're alive, because this moment right now is all you ever really have. And it's enough. You are enough. So breathe. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. Let the thoughts come and go like waves on the ocean. You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to be here. And you are, right now, fully, completely. Here,